I thought it would just be me presenting to the AV guys. And I know for a fact, because you just told me, they're not really interested in what we're talking about today. So I thought it might be quite a dull presentation. So whether it is a dull presentation or not, we will find out. But thank you for staying to the end of the day to see it anyway. So my name is Laurie. I work for SAS, leading analytics software company. I've worked for SAS for some 25 years. I've been in data analytics for 30 years. I'm a mathematician, and I could quite happily stand here for the next 20, 30 minutes and talk about algorithms. In fact, nothing would make me happier than to stand here for the next 20 minutes and talk about algorithms. But over the last 20 years, I've realized it's not about algorithms. Algorithms don't matter a damn. It's not about the maths, weirdly. It's about what you do with the maths that's important. So why is the title of this presentation? So I'm certainly going to talk about predictive analytics, but I'm really going to talk about what you do with predictive analytics and how you can use it to make a difference. And to do that, in some ways, you have to bend what nature wants you to do. You have to constrain creativity in some ways. We'll talk about that during the course of the presentation. So in my 30 years of doing this stuff, there's been a lot of talk about analytics, a lot of talk about algorithms. But as I say, I've realized it's not about that. It's about what you do with the output of the analytics. And way, way too much time is spent on talking about the wrong thing. Talking about analytics rather than the analytics life cycle. So what do I mean by that? I mean getting the right data together, an art in itself. We know often that's the majority of the time. Building models, yes, to drive insight, but then actually taking action on the back of that insight. Review what you do, refine what you do. But if you don't take action on what you do, on the models you've built, it's maths for maths' sake. Might be fun for some people, but from a business perspective, a complete waste of time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about an analytics life cycle and the governance you need in place to take advantage of analytics. A lot of this is about changing business processes and changing the way people think. So again, we'll touch on some of that stuff. So how do you make the changes you need to make? You need to make the changes because otherwise your business analytics is just a jigsaw puzzle. It's siloed pieces of insight, people working in isolation on bits of data they have available to drive some insight which they may or may not do anything with. They might pass up the chain of command to people that then don't do anything with that output. So unless you have a joined up, governed approach, you end up with a lot of pieces and a jigsaw puzzle that will never actually create a full picture. So this can be summarized, a lack of a joined up approach across the whole enterprise leading to analytics, but no action. So how do you do this? Well, unfortunately, there is no silver bullet to do this. I've worked in this industry for a long time. I've worked with customers across banking, retail, telco, government, energy, you name it, I've worked in those industries. There is no single way of doing this. You need a different approach for different companies you're working with. You need a different approach if you're working in different industries. You need a different approach working in different business domain areas. The way you solve this problem in a regulated part of the business, like risk or fraud, very, very different from an unregulated business, part of the business, like, say, marketing or supply chain. But there should be a common aim to any business and any industry, and that is to pragmatically take the data you have as quickly as possible, build the right decision-making mechanism as easily as you can and quickly as you can, and deploy it to take action. And that's the life cycle. That is a beginning to end life cycle you need to get through as quickly as possible. And there also needs to be a concept of good enough. I spoke about a decision-making mechanism there. I use that term deliberately. For some business problems, a rule is good enough. If I want to put two segments, men and women, if gender equals men, else F, is good enough, right? That's good enough for that business problem. You don't need to build a neural network to solve that business problem. Too often I go and see companies, and there's analysts, very smart people, fine-tuning their model to the nth degree. I used to work with a great analyst in the States, and he had this phrase, when is the juice worth the squeeze? Sometimes the art is to know when to stop modeling as to when to start modeling. When have you squeezed the lemon so much that you can squeeze it for the rest of time, but you're going to get so little extra juice out of it, you might as well not bother. Got to be a concept of good enough. A good enough model today is better than a perfect model potentially in 6 months' time. So what obstacles do organizations face in order to make analytics part of their DNA and the way they make business decisions? Well, as ever, whenever you see one of these presentations, people will talk about people, process, technology. Well, I'm no different. I'm going to talk about obstacles in people, obstacles in process, and obstacles in technology. So how can technology help? So often technology is the easiest thing to conquer. See, it's really hard to change people's minds. It's really hard to change business processes that have been in place for 20 years. Quite often technology is the easiest thing to change. But that doesn't mean it's easy. It's just the easiest thing to change. So the role of technology in an analysis project is clear. Find the right data, serve up the right data as quickly and cleanly as possible, provide the right tools, functions, mechanisms, call them what you will, to produce analysis and build models, deploy those models into production as quickly as possible, and have some level of governance around them. So you monitor, refine, measure, and so forth. So that's what technology brings. Too often, though, I still see, even in this day and age, even in 2017, I work with customers and their business process is this. Analyst wants to build a model, phones up IT department. IT department takes 1 month to get the data extract he or she needs. They then spend 2 weeks building said model. They then pass model back to IT department, 1 month to write an SQL script to put it into some decision engine to make decision. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Yeah? Your model goes live 2.5 months after you stated the business problem. Models have a best before date. Models are like fish, they go off, right? And so if your model is 2.5 months out of date before you even start using it, how good is it at making decisions? So you need to take all that latency out of the process. You need to be able to make data readily available. You need to be able to model quickly and where appropriate automatically. You need to have automatic model deployment, and you need to have automatic model governance. You need a ready meal for modeling. By doing that, you can take the latency out of the problem, you build a decision process quickly, you make decisions and action quickly. I'm going to touch on governance here. So this is all about building a model factory. Has anyone heard of GDPR? I'm sure everyone in this room has heard of GDPR. Is anyone in the room worried about GDPR? You probably should be worried about GDPR, actually. Even if you're an analyst, you should be worried about GDPR. There's a really interesting paper. I read it only last week. Find the time to download Article 29 of the GDPR regulations. It talks about the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques in a GDPR world. Yeah? The regulation, as it stands today, will say that as an analyst or as an organization using analysis, you have to explain to your customers not only what data you hold about them, but what calculated fields you have generated on the basis of that data. What do they mean by calculated field? They mean model score, right? And you haven't only got to explain the data you have, you've got to explain, and in the paper it uses these words in a clear and understandable way, the logic you used to generate that score. Yeah? Now, if you've used the decision tree, really straightforward, right? If then else logic, this is how I built the score. If you built a multi-layer perceptron using neural network technique, a whole different ballgame, right? So all of a sudden, in a governed world, an analyst has to think about, for the business application they're doing, do they have to consider which algorithms they use to be GDPR compliant? It's a whole different way of thinking about it, right? I didn't really realize that till I read the whole paper. It's about 30 pages. It's not the lightest read in Unite. If you suffer from insomnia, maybe it's something you could take to bed with you or wait for an audio book to be produced. But it's worth a read. It really is worth a read. I didn't realize that that issue was going to be as big as it is until I read the paper. I only spoke about that now because it came to mind, really. But I spoke about it because of governance. So that's part of the model governance process. You need not only to be able to explain the model internally, you may also have to explain the model externally, even in a non-regulated business environment. So we've spoken about getting data together. We've spoken about model building. We've spoken about model deployment and governance. These things need to work in harmony. You need a single platform to do it in one platform. You need to get the band back together, if you like. Yeah? So silly analogy, But if these instruments are all out of tune with each other, the music it produces is not going to be great. So the model preparation, the data preparation needs to work with the model development needs to work with the deployment needs to be part of a governance model. So I'm sure all of you have technology available to do this stuff. You've probably got all the technology you need, but think about what else you might need. You may need to enhance your capabilities to make sure your things like GDPR compliant. You have the governance piece as well as the modeling piece, as well as the data piece. So just think about what extra processes you may need or extra technology you may need in what is a more governed world. You need something where you have governance for data management, governance for model build, governance for model monitoring, governance for model deployment across the whole suite. So that's technology. Of course, the other obstacle that makes enterprises not take full advantage of this stuff, is people. We all understand data in this room. I guess we all understand analysis in this room. Do we work with people that don't? Show of hands, do you have to work with people that don't understand this stuff? Yeah? How hard is it to communicate with those people sometimes? For many, many people, this is a leap of faith. Silly analogy of a leaping person. It's a leap of faith to get a business person that's been using their gut feel to make decisions for 20 years to trust the output you're giving them, trust the model score, phone up these cohort of people, only order these products next month. It's a real leap of faith for people that have been using their business experience to making these decisions for a long, long time. So we need to find a way to take these people with us. Silly example, worked with a big supermarket a few years ago. We built the most sophisticated forecasting algorithm you could believe. This forecasting algorithm was fantastic. It took advantage of not only past data, but prices of competitive products, marketing events, weather. Fantastic, yeah? And you could use this to actually determine in an operational process what to put on trucks the night before to determine what got delivered the next day. Company rolled it out. Every single store manager overrode that capability with what their gut feel told them they should order. And so all that modeling had absolutely no impact at all. Yeah. The only way the company could take advantage of it was physically turn off the store manager's ability to override. They didn't even bother trying to convince them. They just turned it off so they couldn't do it anymore. Instantly, the forecast model worked. Perishable things thrown away went down by 10%. Stock rooms decreased size by 8%. Profits went up by 3%. Yeah? Massive, massive impact, but they had to turn off people's ability to actually take advantage of it. So you've got to take people on a journey with you, because quite often, just turning off someone's capability to do something probably isn't the right answer. So you need to work with business people to make sure they understand the benefits, understand what this would mean to them. And that may mean we have to use a whole different set of language when communicating to these people. And this is one of the key skills, I think, in the future for an analyst, the ability to communicate in different ways to lots and lots of different people. Do you have an analyst-to-analyst conversation? You're going to talk about R squared, you're going to talk about chi squared, yeah, you're going to talk about MAPE, if it's a forecasting type model, you're going to talk about that sort of thing. To a business person, you want to talk about, I can uplift your response rate by X%, leading to an increase in value of your campaign by X million pounds. A totally different language to say exactly the same thing. But that's the sort of thing that all of a sudden analysts and data scientists are going to need to learn. Talking to a whole set of different people with a whole set of different words. So I've got a good example of that. We work really close with HSBC Bank at SAS. HSBC use us to credit card fraud. Whenever you put your HSBC card in a machine, in the background, SAS is running complex neural networks to determine whether that's a fraudulent transaction or not. So if it gets sent away, it's kind of our fault. Saves them hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds a year. But actually, it was only by speaking to the marketing department that they understood that actually the marketing benefits were even greater. Customer satisfaction by people not being turned away at the till for no good reason or called to the phone to answer a stupid question actually were equally as valuable as preventing the fraud losses. And then you lay onto that the extra data they had from capturing every transaction for marketing purposes, you can see exactly where the benefits lie. But in order to uncover those benefits, we had to have a whole different set of conversations with a whole different set of people using very different language. The fraud team wanted to talk about false positive rates. The marketing team wanted to talk about customer satisfaction index. Totally different metrics provided by the same solution. So communication now has to be one of data scientist's strengths. Now, quite often, certainly in the past, a statistician wasn't necessarily a great communicator. Maybe those two skills are mutually exclusive. They can't afford to be anymore. So in taking people on a journey with you, you've got some choices, right? The Waitrose example, they use a stick. They're going to turn off people's ability to override forecasts. You've also got a carrot, yeah? Explain to business people the extra benefits you would have. You make your life easier, you higher profitability, lower costs, lower headcount, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Find a whole different business set of metrics to explain why analytics is important, as opposed to, it's really neat, look at my algorithm. Yeah. Of course, if it doesn't work, you can still revert to the stick, right? And the key thing to the stick is having business executive sponsorship. And actually, I'd say for any project, without exec sponsorship, you're probably doomed to failure. We've done a brilliant project with ShopDirect. If you shop at ShopDirect, so Very is one of their brands, go online recommendation system will serve up recommendations to you. Really neat use of analytics. When you think about what they had to change to their business processes behind the scenes, you're talking about supply chain changes, pricing changes, advertising changes, website design changes, before you even get to the analysis. So the only way we can make that happen was have senior exec sponsorship. So we're very lucky the CEO was our sponsor for that project. So sometimes you have to literally go to the CEO level to get all the parts of the business working in harmony to even take advantage of what might be quite a simple piece of machine learning type technology, for example. Yeah. And always tell a story. A story always beats, here's my paper on why advanced analytics is really neat. Tell a story about what some of the use cases you've read, some of the stories you've heard. Is always a way better way to get people on a journey with you. This picture is even a stretch for me, but let me see if I can make it work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about process. So you can have the best technology in the world, you can have the best people in the world. Without a decent process, your project is probably not going to work. It's probably not going to deliver the benefits you're hoping for. Think of this as having rice and mince, and there's no chili in your chili. Yeah? Sometimes you need a small bit of something to have the impact you need. So you've got fantastic technology, you've got fantastic people. If you don't change your business process, you're probably not going to deliver the benefits you thought. And sometimes you have to get those skills from elsewhere. Sometimes you have to go to third parties. So we work with Travis Perkins. Ever heard of Travis Perkins, kind of builder's merchant? We built some fantastic CRM type models for them. Great stuff, yeah? They had to fundamentally change their business process to take advantage of them, because their order system wasn't hooked up to their CRM system. Their CRM system couldn't take personalization. They had no way of putting propensity scores within their outbound marketing system. So we actually go to a third party, a company called Core Compete, to actually work with them on a business change program to even take advantage of the relatively straightforward analysis we'd built. So what turned out to be a little bit of regression modeling turned into a big business change process, because it's the only way they could get the value out of the analysis. And I've seen so many cases in my 30 years where people haven't thought through the process from end to end. Worked with a credit card company. Targeted marketing. You only want to market to people that are likely to want to respond, right? Otherwise you just spend too much money and hack everyone off. So we built a fantastic targeted model for marketing. Someone along the way hadn't thought they have to change the way the marketing department is targeted. The marketing department was still targeted on number of mails sent. So what did they do? They mailed everyone anyway, right? It doesn't matter what the personalization said. We're going to mail everyone anyway because that's the way they were targeted, that's their measure, that's the way they get paid. So sometimes you need to think through the process, not only from a business process, but actually from an individual motivation perspective. If you don't target people in the right way to change their behavior, they're going to carry on doing what they've always done. So the whole organization needs to work together across many different functions, including IT and business functions. And quite often, the business function and IT actually works quite well together. They have a good relationship, they work every day. But sometimes there's feuds across department, right? How many people have worked in organizations where there's feuds across department? Who owns the customer database, yeah? Do risk people get the first dibs at your marketing database, or do marketing people get the first dibs at your marketing database? But these departments need to work together. Imagine a world, it sounds trivial, but I've seen it done, where the marketing department produces a fantastic campaign to send out loans, offers for loans to people. Yeah? So I received this offer for loan, low percentage rate, fantastic. I'm going to respond to this campaign. It's targeted at me. I'm going to respond to the campaign. I apply for the loan, and I'm turned down because I'm a bad credit risk. What's my customer experience like? You've asked me to do something, and then you turn me down. Why? Because the risk department wasn't working in conjunction with the marketing department. Marketing department finding good people to offer loans to, like they're likely to respond, but they can't pay their money back, right? Got to work together. So again, a trivial example, but I've seen it happen. So in this business process, all departments may need to work together to have a single customer-centric view of a problem. So I've touched on technology, people, and process. I want to talk a little bit about an analysis team. What makes a great analyst in 2017 and beyond? Yeah? It used to be go and find the best mathematician you could find, or go and buy the best statistician you could find. I've said already, that's now outdated. You need people with good communication skills. You need people that are more creative than maybe in the past. We actually ran a surveyed the whole country on what makes a great data scientist. And we found 6 different things, ranging across not only mathematical skills and technology skills, communication, creativity, believe it or not, presentability, yeah? Lots and lots of different factors that all of a sudden a data scientist need. And in all likelihood, you're not going to find those skills or capabilities in one person. So you need to build a team. Not everyone can be sent forward. You need to build a team that has all those different attributes within it. So when we talk about this, we talk about 4 different types of role. I'm not sure if these pictures accurately represent those 4 different types of role, but there's a business manager, we call a translator, someone that can take the output of analysis and translate it for the business. There's a business analyst, who we call the analyzer. So these are people that actually understand the business problem, can turn it into a mathematical problem, and then understand the output after the analysis to take it to the translator. There's clearly the modeler, the deep dive mathematicians, data scientists, statisticians expert that actually does the modeling and builds the model. And clearly there's also someone that prepares the data, the preparer, if you like. Someone that gets the data together so the modeler can do their work well. So there's your life cycle, yeah? Preparer to modeler to, what did I call it? to business analyst to translator. So there's your analytics life cycle. Now, it may be you don't have all those skills in one person. You may need 4 different people for that whole life cycle. But sometimes you do need it all in one person, and that's led to the rise of something called a citizen data scientist. Anyone in the room call themselves a citizen data scientist? No? Okay. So what is a citizen data scientist? Someone that can kind of do all those bits. At their heart, they're probably a business analyst or a business person, but they can use easy-to-use visualization tools. They can use easy-to-use data preparation tools to at least make the first stab at a problem. Technology moving at a fast pace, and all of a sudden it is very easy to produce a model. You'll see vendors here racked to the walls, I'm sure, that say you can produce an AI model in 3 clicks. Right? That sort of stuff is possible for the right business problem. So citizens data scientists can take advantage of that, produce their data from a data lake, Hadoop data lake or data warehouse very easily, put it into some automated modeling tool, visualize the output, and then take it to the business because that's where their core skills are. So increasingly, these people will be increasingly valuable in the market. These are the sort of people that are earning £250,000 today. So if I advise you to do anything, is turn yourself into one of these folk. So as I said earlier, I wasn't really going to talk much about analysis. I wasn't really going to talk much about data science. I'm really trying trying to get across the fact that, yes, analysis is important. But if you don't get it out there in action, making business decisions, it's a complete waste of time. Yeah? And I'm sure none of us want to spend our time doing something that's a complete waste of time. So I'll leave you with that. I promise you I'll get you out early, and I have. Thank you very much.